Hello everyone, this is JP from BigSexyBeast.com. It is April 7th, and it's like day 1,000,000 of quarantine. I don't remember exactly which. I wanted to get a video out for you this week, but just like the rest of you, I am not doing a lot of adventures right now, and I hope you are all observing your social distancing guidelines, whatever's appropriate in your area. But I've got a lot of video from adventures from previous years that maybe I'll post and share here. And it'll be a little bit different style of video. It'll be more of a voice-over of photos and drone footage than I normally do, kind of more live action stuff. But I think you'll find it pretty interesting. This first one I'm going to share is in Coal Creek, Colorado, C-O-A-L, Creek, Colorado. And I think the theme of this video is really epic campsite and epic campfire. And as we get into some of the drone footage and the photos, I think you'll see why. So this video starts out like all epic adventures should, which is a complete and utter debacle. So we had a number of guys. This is in 2017, and this is, I think there's probably 8 or 9 of us in a convoy. And every 2 years we do this trip we call the Ramble. And a lot of times it's a lot of the same guys, and every now and then we pick up a couple of new guys on the trip. And in 2017, nobody was getting along. We couldn't agree on where we were going to go. We couldn't agree on what we wanted to see. And so it was just a complete disaster on which direction we were going. And so we're running along through Colorado with no plan in mind, and just happen into this area around Coal Creek in Colorado. And we roll in and begin setting up a convoy, or setting up a campsite in this place. And what we really didn't realize as we got into this is that this was going to turn out to be just an epic location. And it happened completely by accident. And so the drone footage is a little shaky here, so I apologize for that. But again, I'm using old video and trying to make the best of quarantine here. But I think as you'll see, so this is Coal Creek in Colorado. And I wish now, in hindsight, that I'd had a fly rod or something with me, because this ended up just being an unbelievable canyon in the middle of a wilderness. I think this is the Gunnison National Forest. I know it's Coal Creek, but it's around Gunnison, Colorado. And this is the road that's coming in here. And we set up this campsite. And, you know, again, in hindsight, you look at this place and it's like, we didn't plan to be here. We didn't know this place existed. And it turned out to just be spectacular. And this is the drone here. I'm going out, and we got a couple of guys that are kind of scouting out, are we in the best spot? You know, so we got guys that are mad, and they're setting up their tents and rooftop tents and awnings and everything like that, and trying to get set up for the night. We got 2 guys that are mad because they don't think we're in the best spot, or 2 or 3 guys actually. So they're going out to explore a little bit more. And me, I'm just kind of flying the drone, making everybody mad. Chasing the guys that are setting up the campsite. Look at that tree. That tree it's got to be 150 feet tall. It's like the most beautiful Christmas tree you can imagine. This is me zooming in on the guys, like full-on bomb site. I think this is Craiglow and Joe walking up to check out if this other campsite that's on the water is a better place for us to be set up for the night. And just to give you a little insight here, you'll see it in just a minute. It is a better campsite. And we probably should have set up down here. But we were so busy setting up camp where we were at because we've been driving all day. And we'd come through a forest. It was about the time of year where they're starting to take sheep out of the high country and bring them down low. And I love some of the angles you get on trees, especially in places like Colorado, because they literally look like Christmas trees in a train model or something like that. And so what you're seeing now is Craiglow and I think Josh and there's 4 guys there. I don't know who all these, maybe Dunaway's in there. And my dog Scout, and they've checked out this next campsite, which has a fire ring and it's right on the water. And it is clearly a better campsite than where we're at. But people aren't getting along, and people are already setting up camp, and so there's no way that people are going to move vehicles at this point. The moral of this story is the spot we were at ended up being amazing. We had a great time there. There was a scout running into the water. We had a great time there, and we had a great fire for the evening. And this whole place was completely unplanned and an accident. And so I think the takeaway here is that even sometimes when you have no plan and you just kind of stumble into a place, it really kind of becomes what you make it. It's not about whether you have the best campsite or not, or whether you could have gotten a better spot 150 yards down the trail, or whether everybody could agree on what the right camp spot was. But this ended up being a great campsite overall, as you'll see from a little bit more of the footage in a minute. And we had no idea that this part of Colorado even existed, and we just kind of happened into this spot. So hopefully you enjoy kind of the rest of the video as it unfolds here. But I think that's an important mindset when you're talking about adventuring with friends and overlanding. Is not everybody's going to agree on everything, and not everybody's going to agree all the time. But in hindsight, everybody really enjoyed this evening, and it ended up being a spot that we didn't plan on being at, and it just kind of worked. It just flowed, and once we got into it, there's some really funny stuff that happened with us trying to gather firewood and figuring out how we were going to get a fire started and some of those things. But that's camp right there. You can see the vehicles that are kind of set up down there. We're missing a couple cars. I don't know where they're at right now. We'll find them later. But look at that spot we're at, that we're so mad about being at that moment. But by the next morning, we were pretty happy with the way that things turned out. So let's get into some more of the pictures and video and kind of check out how that goes. Out here that this is actually we're going to be camped for the night. We start get set up, and so on the left side of the picture there, we got a Ford Raptor with a rooftop tent on it. We've got a Lexus GX 470 with a hard shell rooftop tent and an awning. We've got my Teardrop, there's Scout and Jagger, a couple dogs with us. That's me with the drone and my buddy Wes, and kind of looking at the through the drone viewfinder there. But we kind of start to get set up with camp, and we put the awnings together with the awning of the rooftop tent and the back of the Teardrop there. There's the FJ. And we started to work on processing some firewood. I think this is, I don't know who that's maybe, it's Wheeler, I think, over there processing up a down log so we can start to have some firewood. So at this point, the whole focus of camp starts to talk or to shift, and it begins to focus on getting a fire for the evening, and which is good, because at this point people are kind of starting to stop fighting with one another, and they're kind of starting to shift their focus towards doing something productive. I don't know what I'm doing with the drone there, but the productive thing is, let's get camp set up, let's get to cooking, and let's get a fire built. And here goes Wes, I think, over to help Wheeler get some of the firewood up. Oh, there I am. I'm flying the drone and looking at firewood at the same time. There's Scout. And so my takeaway from that is, again, didn't plan on being here. Epic campsite. And once everybody kind of started getting focused on a task, kind of the frustration with one another about not where we're going kind of goes away, and everybody kind of gets focused on a task. And it reminds me a lot of the old exploration stories, I hate to even compare it because obviously this isn't as much as like Shackleton, trying to sail the Arctic or anything like. Look at that beautiful campsite, by the way. That's just unbelievable. That's what we're dealing with here. But like, you think about these captains on these explorations to South America, or I'm sorry, the South Pole or the North Pole or whatever, how important it was for them to keep their crew focused on something and keep their crew focused on a job. And that was pretty clear for us as well, because once we got focused on something, nobody had time to be mad at each other. Now we're focused on bringing all this wood over here and getting the campfire started. And it was just an interesting group dynamic thing. So if you guys are doing overlanding, you're doing camping, and you're doing it with big groups, which is some of the most fun that you'll do, is doing it with a group of folks. Not everything's going to go right. Not everybody's going to agree on the destination. But as you look at me, I'm carrying a log of wood and trying to fly the drone at the same time. If you get focused on something in the moment, kind of all that other frustration stuff kind of fades away. And it was just a really interesting phenomenon. So that was a kind of a fun learning out of all of this. And it's cool, right? All the trucks set up. They've got their rooftop tents out. They've got their awnings out. We're getting the wood for the campfire. I mean, this is everything that you would ultimately think and hope that overlanding should be, and clearly it was. But it was a rough and rocky start to get to this point. So let me kind of cut this drone clip down, and let's take a look at a couple of others. So now that we've got things set up, we start to have a little bit of fun. Group's not fully together yet, but this is Joe, and I'm messing with him with the drone here. And it's funny because you can tell by the look on his face. It's like it's this big mosquito that's about to get him. And his facial expressions are fantastic. And then, boom, the drone flies away. And as I come back down, then you can see the guys laughing in the background because Joe jumped when the drone took off. And it's another good view of camp, right? So you can kind of get a feel of a bunch of guys set up in a convoy here. We got some firewood under the truck because we think it's going to rain this night. You can still see there's two different groups working here. We hadn't come together yet as a complete team. But we've got the kitchen set up out of the back of the Lexus GX. We've got the kitchen set up out of the back of the Teardrop trailer. Got those two connected together with the awning and the overhang out of the Teardrop. And I think it actually did rain this night as we were cooking. And so this setup worked up pretty good. And I like this notion of setting up the vehicles kind of in a circle or a semicircle where, you're kind of in tight. It's almost like you feel like you've got a defensive perimeter set up here. And it gave us a really good working space for cooking because we had a kitchen in the back of the Lexus, we had a kitchen in the back of the GX, and so we could kind of go back and forth under the awnings and under the clamshell. I love it. Ryan's looking at it here like, oh my God, what's this drone sneaking up on me here? But it gave us a really good spot to set up and camp and cook. And so this was an interesting kind of takeaway about a way to set up a camp. And you'll see it maybe later in some of the other videos I post where we kind of put the vehicles together and connect to be able to camp and cook while it's raining and things. But again, the trees, just from the perspective of the drone, are really outstanding. So to wrap this video up here, we end up with doing some long exposure photography on the campfire with the drone and then also with an SLR. So everybody at this point's happy. We've had food. We are got a good big campfire going now. And we start to play around with the drone and doing some photography of the campsite with the drone, playing with how long we're exposing the images to get more light in. So you can see this photo now is using a low exposure rate to get the fire in. This is the same time of night, but really up high. using the drone setting on station, meaning just hovering over the top of us, but with a really, really long exposure. And it's completely dark outside at this point. But the drone is just hovering over the top of us a few hundred feet up with the lens open and taking in all of this light. And so you see this bright campfire there, but you can also see the Cold Creek flowing by us off in the distance. And just turned out really nice. Another photo here, a little bit of out of focus, but bringing in the campfire so you can kind of get that hominess and that perspective of us all kind of coming together around the fire. And a couple of more shots here. This is kind of off in the distance to kind of take in the whole camp. Same thing, the drone's just hovering there with the lens open, taking in all the light that it can. It's completely dark outside. But yet when we get the long exposure, it seems like it's daylight still. And at this point, the lights in the Ford Raptor are on because somebody's opened the door or done something like that. And you can kind of see how that affected the exposure. So pretty awesome playing around with the camera. So speaking along exposure and darkness, it's kind of starting to get dark here now. But hopefully that was interesting and fun. Again, I've got a lot of old footage of a variety of different adventures, from up in the Arctic Circle to trips in Colorado and Wyoming, Montana, to Newfoundland in Canada, and Iceberg Alley. So while we're in quarantine here, I may do a number of these videos like this where I'm kind of doing a voiceover of some old videos. Hopefully you found it interesting. If you like our content, please like and subscribe to the video and the channel, and we'll try to get some more out for you in the next coming days, so that you've got hopefully something to watch during quarantine that's better than sitting there watching the paint dry. Again, this is JP at BigSexyBeast.com, and thank you very much for tuning in.